Hi, and welcome to the Bouncing Back Podcast, Professionals Thriving with Chronic Illness. I'm Melissa McCurley, your host, and someone navigating life and business with the challenges of autoimmune disease. This podcast is about resilience, inspiration, and actionable strategies to help you thrive, no matter where you are in your health journey. In each episode, we'll share stories and insights from professionals who've bounced back stronger. Let's redefine what it means to live and thrive with chronic illness. Now, let's dive in. Hi, my name's Melissa McCurley, and I am the creator of the Bounce Back podcast. I've been a professional TV and film actor for over 20 years, also a realtor and real estate investor. The reason why I'm creating this podcast is that in 2020, I was affected by autoimmune illnesses that essentially put my life on hold. In retrospect, I can see how I had these things for a long time, gleefully ignoring the symptoms as I went along, trying to pursue, success after success, until one day the signs were so strong and the pain was so intense, I just had to stop in my tracks. My goal with this podcast is to create a tool that I wish I had when I was on this journey. There was definitely a point in my healing journey process where I honestly quit believing that I could ever be successful again, that I could ever be a professional again, that I could ever add value or have meaning, the things that had given my life value again. And it was a very dark place. And so I'm creating this podcast to speak to people who are at any point on their autoimmune journey or a journey of any chronic illness, to show them that success is possible. It might get redefined. It might change what that means to you. Your approach might be different. You might incorporate some new things you've learned and pull back on some things you used to implement, but it's completely possible. So here at this podcast, we're going to be sharing other stories of success and tools and strategies that me, as well as my myriad of amazing guests, have implemented on their path to bouncing back. We're going to use a Q&A format to kind of pull out my story to help you understand my experience. Maybe you can see yourself in my story and why I'm here and qualified to share this with you today.
And did you know you were having health issues?
So I'd had some health issues my whole life. I had IBS type symptoms since childhood. I'd had lots of gross invasive tests regarding that over different points of my life. I kind of got chalked up to that generalized IBS diagnosis in my 20s. In my 20s, I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Didn't realize that was a Hashimoto's version, which is an autoimmune disease. Diagnosed with ADHD in my 20s. So I had some things that I now realize were pieces around this autoimmune disease puzzle, but they were more like irritants, and they weren't things that I had connected any dots around. So looking back, I had had some remnants of these things my whole life, but they got louder starting in about 2018. And then they became impossible to ignore in 2020.
What symptoms did you experience?
I had a lot of symptoms across a long period of time. So I am sorry, this is gross, but like IBS, I'd always been like super constipated, had just trouble with the GI stuff, again, pretty much my whole life. I have had off and on psoriasis, which one of my diagnoses that I have now is psoriatic arthritis. So I had a lot of psoriasis, particularly my scalp, joint pain. That's actually one of the ones I still am dealing with and trying to make space for as I move forward. I have vertigo. I have Hashimoto's thyroidism. I had SIBO, which I cleared with the help of a wonderful integrative doctor and functional nutritionist. I have migraines, but they're different than hormonal migraines like I had younger in my life. They're like 4-day long journeys that kind of start with pain that comes up my back, but they're disorienting like migraines with pain from light and sound, and they're pretty debilitating. I get those for like 4 days at a time. Haven't had one of those in over a year, so knock on wood for that. Fatigue was a big one of mine. For a couple of years there, anytime I drove more than about 30 minutes in any direction, I would have to stop and sleep and nap in order to be able to make the journey back home on that drive. Like if I drove to Dallas and ran some errands or visited family, I would often have to pull over and sleep for like an hour and a half in my car just to make the journey back. A lot of cognitive issues. Brain fog is one of the terms, but also I would say like there's brain fog, but sometimes an inability to find memories or words, like a word connection issue. Definitely some days I lose my thought mid-train. I also have ADHD, which I got diagnosed with in my late 20s. That's not exactly an autoimmune disease, but they're kind of connected, like from the same family. So I'll just throw that in there. So sometimes it's hard to differentiate, right? Whether it's the ADD or the brain fog, but there's definitely been. And when I'm in a flare up, the brain fog piece is strong. And it's like not being able to connect dots or not being able to remember something from 30 minutes ago or 2 days ago. And I used to have sort of a mental encyclopedia of what I was doing, what I'd done, and what I was about to work on. Sleep was pretty good. I've had some hormonal stuff with that, and that was disrupted a bit. So some challenges with sleep. And for me, my biggest ones that are like life limiting are pain, just all over body joint pain, which now has been attributed to psoriatic arthritis and the tiredness. I also have a myriad of food allergies, as most people do with autoimmune disease. So no corn, no soy, no gluten, no everything that tastes good, no wine. Yeah.
How much or how little did you share with others?
So I didn't share with very many people. Like even in 2020, when the fall of 2020, when I would say my autoimmune disease became debilitating, I didn't share it with very many people. My mom, my dad, you, my husband asking me the questions, obviously my medical providers, even like my sister and one or two close friends. I kind of said, hey, I'm having some issues, but I think I had a lot of shame around what was going on with me because I'd been so high achieving before. I didn't have the ability to describe what it was or be able to make meaning out of what it was. So I just kind of felt like I was treading. I didn't want to share it till I had an answer, So that was really I didn't share it with very many people. In fact, honestly, I haven't posted about it much on Facebook. I think if I've done one or two posts, it was like, low inflammatory diet kind of stuff, right? So me dropping this podcast is actually kind of my coming out about this professionally and in public and to people, wider than my immediate family. Yeah.
What strategies did you try for health?
Oh my God. Oh, that's a long list. I've tried a lot of different things. And what I think is important to communicate is that most of them had some benefit. There were a couple of tools that I would say move the needle in a very big way, but all of them work together to kind of move me forward. Some I still implement, some I don't. Some had a bigger impact than others, but from a Western medicine piece, I did a test for SIBO. I took antibiotics for that, cleared it, have done a couple more SIBO tests to see if that's still in place. I have migraine pills that I take. I carry with me everywhere in case I start getting that horrible migraine startup thing. I take Celebrex for my joint pain. That's actually one of the things that allowed me to start working again because I just couldn't get past the joint pain to really be able to show up for anything else. So I take Celebrex, obviously thyroid medicine. I take ADHD medicine. The thyroid and the ADHD were things I'd taken through the course of my life, but now I understand they're part of the gumbo of autoimmune disease, right? So that's the Western medicine side. I get a blood panel done. Oh, and also just with hormones, actually, because the age group I'm in, and I was really low on some of the key markers, and that was interfering with my ability to sleep. So quality of sleep dictates the quality of my life with chronic illness. So those are kind of what I'm doing now. Alternative therapies that I've tried, and I swear by these just as much. I have an infrared sauna that is godsend. I should do it every day. I do it multiple times a week. If I'm in a flare-up, I get right in there. It helps bring down the symptoms in a big way. The infrared sauna is great. I am very cautious about what I eat. For 2.5 years, I did an elimination diet called the Autoimmune Wellness Protocol. That's an amazing resource, by the way, autoimmunewellness.com. They have a podcast. They have recipes. They have a whole online thing, but they have an elimination diet. And I went on that for like 2.5 years just to try to stop the I don't know, roller coaster of hell. Honestly, it was going on in my body. And then to create a baseline. And then from there, once I had a baseline, I started to test things to see how I would react because I was just gotten to a point where I was reacting to absolutely everything. Massage, chiropractor. I go to the chiropractor. I had been in a bad car accident in my 20s. So some of this was stuff I'd done because of that, but everything gets intensified, when you have an autoimmune disease. So more with the chiropractor, acupuncture, massage from time to time. I'd love to be able to incorporate more massage than I do. Food is a big one. That's one of the things right now as a professional I struggle with is the more opportunities I have to work, the less time I have to make all my special food. I tried one of those food services for a while, which was great. I love their food. I love their product. The ingredients were like in check, but I had reactions to it. So I'm not sure what happened there, but the food piece is super key. So I feel like I'm probably forgetting. Oh, I did a celery juice thing in the morning for like 6 months. There's a great series of books called the Medical Medium books. They're kind of out there. That may not be your cup of tea, but they've been recommended to me 3 or 4 times. So two food related protocols that helped me was I followed his celery juice, 32 ounces in the morning. By the way, I hate celery. It's one of my top 5 least favorite foods. If I can drink it, you can drink it. But I did 32 ounces every day for a month. And then I dropped down to 16 ounces a day. And I did that for months. And that's part of what helped me work again. Like it was the celery juice. And then added to that, it was the Celebrex. In fact, I need to go back and do the celery juice because I'm having a lot of puffiness again. The other thing is I did Mark Hyman, who I would recommend you follow. I did his cleanse for like, it's actually, he markets it as like getting off sugar. It's a glucose cleanse, but it's great for autoimmune. And I go back to that protocol, that strategy, whenever I need to recalibrate myself. So those are most of the tools.
What set you back?
Not getting good sleep. That's rough. And like I mentioned before, I was having some hormonal stuff that was really impacting my ability to sleep. So keeping my sleep on point from both, not ingesting too much caffeine, going to bed, keeping regular bedtimes, watching my blue light, all the things, right? Sleep hygiene. If you don't know that term, look it up. And food. If I go into flare up 9 times out of 10, it's over food. And then also stress management. So I've incorporated meditation. I have a Calm app. I have a Zen drawing thing. I do tapping, which is another great protocol. So those 3 things keep me in check.
What diagnosis do you have?
I mentioned them before. Let me just list them off. Hashimoto, thyroidism, ADHD, IBS, SIBO, which is cleared for now. Psoriatic arthritis, psoriasis, chronic fatigue. I've had some health practitioners suggest I have maybe fibromyalgia as well. There's kind of a triangulation of fibromyalgia, psoriatic arthritis, and maybe it's a thyroid thing. Probably have it. Migraines and vertigo. Chronic fatigue. I said that. and brain fog, obviously.
What lingering symptoms do you deal with?
My 2 biggest ones are tiredness and pain. And I honestly don't know if the tiredness comes from being in pain, because anybody who's living with chronic pain, you know how tiring that is. Or if I think they're kind of separate, because sometimes I just literally have to sleep on my car. I'm like, I've got nothing left, even on days where my pain levels are below like a 5. The pain's hard because it's all over body pain. And yeah, those are my 2 biggest ones still.
What were your support systems?
So that was a challenge for me because I'm not a person who likes to ask for help. That wasn't really in my wheelhouse. And this experience forced me to accept help and also learn to ask for it. My my family was my support system. My other half, Roy, you're asking me these questions. He supported us because when I say everything was on hold, I was completely pulled out of life. So I wasn't working at all. He supported us here while I went through this healing journey to pay our bills. We had sold our house in New Mexico, and we had some financial support from the sale of that home. My mom, she lives near me, and she was a tremendous source of emotional support. She too's had some health issues, so we have some similarities there. She drove me to so many doctor's appointments. There were weeks and weeks where I couldn't drive, right? My mom drove me to a lot of doctor's appointments, went to them so that I had somebody who was cognitively present to be able to take notes. And my dad and stepmom, Mary Jo, they've been a tremendous support too, financially helping support. They bought me this infrared sauna for Christmas, a lot of financial support with integrative doctors, holistic doctors. I went to a place called Cannon Ranch. That's amazing. If you've ever been there, it's a spa workout resort place, but they also have some really top tier alternative medicine people. In fact, Dr. Mark Hyman used to be, I believe, in charge of their medical program. So I had access either by phone or in person to some appointments with people who were just top notch in that. And those are my key people. You guys got me through it. And I had a dog that has since passed. I called her my little angel, but for weeks I would just lay in bed, like in pain, right? It hurt so bad to even listen to an audiobook. And reading and listening to audiobooks is like my favorite thing. And she would just lay beside me, and Roy would go to work and he would know I was not alone. And I had this angel of a dog who passed last February. So those guys were my support system.
What advice do you have about sharing with others in regard to your health issues?
That's a great question. I think that's a question everybody, I think, has to kind of think about and answer for themselves based on their situation. To be honest, I haven't worked like a W-2 job since I was in my 20s. So I haven't been in a situation where I had to navigate what to tell coworkers, what to tell my boss, right? Based on my needs, right? If you need time off or this or that. So just to be honest, that's not something I can speak to. I'll look for a guest who could specifically speak to that kind of sharing. With regards to other types of sharing though, there was one or two times that I shared kind of professionally with somebody and they said some things that were hurtful. They didn't mean to. They just didn't have the capacity to understand my situation. They've obviously never walked that path. They just weren't the right people to share it with, right? And I guess maybe I was trying to bond with them, or maybe I was having a bad day. Sometimes I'll share a little bit, just like, hey, I've kind of got a migraine, just to say why I've got whatever going on. Sometimes I have to stand. I can't sit a lot through long events. And sometimes I'll just mention kind of, hey, I have psoriatic arthritis. It helps me to stand, I would say don't share with more people than you need to. Like there needs to be a reason to share it. But I also wouldn't stay wrapped up in secrecy either. There's a balance. So if there's a valid reason to share with somebody, to be able to vocalize your needs, to be able to be honest about what you can share up for, what you can show up for or not. In the course of me moving back into full-time real estate, I've confided in a couple people in my sphere with real estate about my health situation in an effort to collaborate with them while being forthcoming about my situation, right? Like I may need some days where I can't show up. I may need to work from home more than you do, like just that transparency. So each person's going to have to walk that journey, but I'd be cautious who you share it with. If there's not a reason, like don't, but also don't be afraid to let people know what's going on with you.
What would you say to a professional who's in the throes of chronic illness? Maybe they've had to take a step back from their life.
Yeah. So if you've received a diagnosis that you have some kind of chronic illness, autoimmune, whether you know what it is or whether it's still really jumbled, it took years for me to untangle all my different diagnoses, right? Please take it seriously because whatever inconvenience or pain or side effect symptom you're having right now, if you don't put time and energy and deal with it, it is going to go from knocking on your door to banging on your door to screaming at you to setting your house on fire. And I wish I could have said that to myself, right? Like back in 2017 or 2018. So please, whatever it is you have, learn about it. There's great online communities and forums. Educate yourself. Look at both Western and holistic integrative. I believe all of those things work together for a perfect whole. It's not an either or conversation, but please take it seriously and start to put together the puzzles of your life in a way that support what you need instead of waiting until you have to do that because you have no other choice and you can't take one more step forward. Because that's what I did. It wasn't great. And I would also say that please know that you can live a rich, full, wonderful life while dealing with chronic illness. You may have a period of time where that's not the case. I certainly did. It was about 3 years. But again, the sooner you get to it, the better. And you just may have to change some things, right? You may not can be the person who stays out till 1 o'clock in the morning, drinking, dancing on a table, but maybe it's time in your life for that to shift. But that doesn't mean you can't have wonderful times and have great adventures. Yeah.
What or who inspires you?
Oh my God. So many people who inspires me. Every person I talk to who is on this journey inspires me, whether they're beginning it, whether they've had it for 10 years, and they're sharing their tips and tricks, whether there's somewhere in between. I think I was grossly under compassionate about people living with chronic illness before I had one. I think I was one of those kind of toxic positive people that I did a lot of personal growth. I did a lot of Tony Robbins. I did a lot of, Mind Valley and all this stuff's great. I'm not saying that's toxic the way I brought it was, but I always thought that if you did all the right things, you ate all the right stuff and you had the right attitude and you focused on the right things, you would never have anything painful or bad, like physically happen to you. Right. And I learned that's just not the case. So I think just understanding that people go through this and that it's hard and that sometimes you may define success as, hey, I just moved the needle on my business from $1 million to $10 million this year. And there's a lot of YouTube videos about that. And that's great. And that's great. But for somebody else, success might be like, hey, I made it into the office today and I brushed my teeth and I have a smile on my face. And this is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life was to do this today. Because you truly never know what somebody's going through and what it takes them just to show up. And I think we could do better in supporting each other on that. So, people that inspire me, everybody walking the journey, professionals like Dr. Mark Hyman, Sarah Ballantyne, people who devoted Dr. Parmdidra, who I hope to one day have as my guest. He was an integrative doctor that helped me with this. Just everybody in the healthcare industry on all facets of it, just trying to help people. This is a difficult conversation, and it's like a gumbo. There's no one thing. There's no magic bullet. There's no one disease. There's no one symptom. It is like teasing out a ball of yarn that has gotten so twisted up that anybody working in this field, is inspiring. Because you know what? Everybody's got a piece of inspiration to add to the story, to the puzzle. So, yeah.
How did you feel about the chronic illness?
First, I was in denial. I was like, oh, I'm just feeling bad. My joints are hurting. I probably shouldn't have eaten pizza like this. And I was in denial for a long time. And then I was mad, right? Because I had to go from making my 3-year plan, my 1-year plan, my 6-month plan, my month-long plan. I couldn't even do a week-long plan. Like I just had to drop. Plans was like, how do I get through the day and live, right? And I had been a person that really loved planning and set big goals and reached a lot of them, right? It's hard to create a career even as a working actor, right? Like in film and TV. And I had worked on that for over 20 years. And, you know, I'd flipped over 75 houses in my house flipping business. And I had created a 6-figure business my first year as a full-time realtor in New Mexico. And so not being able to achieve things was really hard for me. So I was angry for a while. I was pissed. I wasn't too much into the victim thing, which I'm grateful for because I think that's an even yuckier place to be. But I was pissed, not at anything or God or myself, just at the situation, right? But I do want to say that the darkest part for me was when I had to ask myself, what if this is as good as it's ever going to get, right? When you're a person who is high achieving and you're a strong professional and so much of your identity has been wrapped up in your accomplishments, in being able to manifest things in your life, right? And you get to a point where you're living breath to just moderate the pain, right? Whether you're in a migraine, whether you're in joint pain, whether you're in a vertigo episode that's so strong that every time you just try to sit up, the world's spinning and you feel like you're going to puke and you fall down. I went through a window of time where I thought, oh my God, if this is what it's going to be forever and a day going forward, like, I don't know that I want this. I don't know that I'm up for this. Like, why would I even want to continue on this journey, right? This sucks. And it was finally in that moment that I surrendered. Maybe it's not a moment, that week period, 2-week period. But it was when I was in that emotional place that I surrendered. And I just said, you know what? Here's the deal. Screw it, right? Like, forget all the things I used to be and that I used to want and the hopes and the dreams I had and all the stuff, right? Because at this point, I've had to sell my house and give up my business and hadn't done any acting in years and all the stuff. I put on 50 pounds, okay? All of it. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to say, okay, God, I'm here. I accept this. I surrender to this. I'm going to choose to believe that there's some reason why this is happening and that my hope is that one day I can make meaning out of this and have it maybe help other people and have value. But regardless of that today, I'm just going to be present and I'm just going to say, okay. And like when I accepted that, things started to move forward for me. Right? I quit fighting myself. I quit fighting the process. I quit living in a place that was either yesterday or tomorrow. And I just moved into today and I just sort of breathed through it and journaled.
What's your goal for this podcast?
So my goal for this podcast is to create the tool that I wish I had when I was going through this. I want to create a tool where regardless of where you are on your process, if you're just beginning, if you're in the hell dark days, if you're totally killing it, you want to be a guest, email me. You know, if you are in a flare up, right? And you're having to go back and second guess, I'm here again. I want to create a tool that you can get in and out of pretty quickly and get motivated by somebody's story, get some actionable tools, whether that's a mindset tool, whether that's a physical thing you do, whether that's a shift in thinking, relationship, conversation, implementation that you can walk away with and make your life better. And a tool of encouragement, because if I can do it, you can do it. If other people can do it, I can do it, right? We've all walked this road together and create community around this. Then we're all not individual little spokes off in our own personal hell trying to figure it out, right? One of the things I've learned is that over 23 million Americans suffer with autoimmune disease, and 40% of our population in America is living with some kind of chronic illness. So this is something we have to talk about. It's something we have to put our guard down about. We can't just talk about it once we're doing 100%. And we can't just talk about it, from the dark places. We have to share the whole journey, right? People I don't want to say the term gotten on the other side of it, right? Because we never get on the other side of it. But people who've gotten further along the path, we need to share the part that's tough and the part that sucks and how we got there. Because it doesn't do any service to anyone, including ourselves when we were in that spot, to not know the steps forward. So my goal is to create a podcast that's uplifting and fun and actionable so you can see that you're not alone and that we're all in this together. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Bouncing Back Podcast, Professionals Thriving with Chronic Illness. I hope you found inspiration and actionable takeaways to support you on your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need a little encouragement today. Remember, thriving with chronic illness is possible. You are stronger than you think. Until next time, take care and keep bouncing